All right, it being a little bit after 9 o'clock, we'll bring the facilities and property management meeting to order. The first agenda item is approval of the minutes of the April 13th, 2022 Facility and Property Management Committee.
So move.
Second,
I'll second.
right? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Correspondence shared by committee members. Anybody have anything? I guess I will just say that thank you to my colleagues for appointing me to chairman of this committee. It's quite the honor. I look forward to working with you guys in the next 2 years. And like I said, this has been a great committee to work on and look forward to these next 2 years. We have obviously some contentious issues, but we'll get through them. And if you need anything from me, let me know. Anybody else? All right. Next agenda item is public input on agenda items. Anybody? Anybody on Zoom?
Mike is talking.
Muted.
Hey, Mike, can you hear us? I was muted.
I can hear you well.
All right. Anything on that?
I don't think so.
Okay, we'll move on to discussion and approval of capital project and budget transfer of $1,068,427 to design and construct residential housing for release 980 offenders.
This is the project request approval for funding for the project that was presented at county board last week. It is a facility for 980 sex offenders. We are responsible for finding a location for them. Several years ago, I was involved with them, and I can attest that we could not find any place out in the public, either with a vendor or a real estate parcel that we could buy within the time frames that the state had us forced into. Or I should say not the state, but the legislation that forces us into. And I think we, at that time, we had 180 days. And because of the length of time that's passed now, the legislation says we have 120 days to find a place for these the individuals to live. At the time, we put a trailer out at the landfill. And what we ended up having to do was parcel out the land, create the site for the trailer, buy the trailer, get it there. That all cost us roughly $175,000 and about 9 months in time to get it all done through the city and through the actual construction work. What we're trying to do now is be proactive and build 6 individual units. We are allowed to have people cohabitate, but what we found when we built the nursing home at Parkview is a lot of times we had compatibility issues with individuals, or the beds that we had open in double occupancy rooms were, one was occupied by a male and we needed a bed for a female. This will provide us a lot of opportunity, or it will eliminate compatibility issues with any of the inmates that are left out, which is one of the things that the state human services, I believe it is concerned about when they place people together in a residence. And it would also provide us having space available as these people come out. I believe right now we have 2 people that we are looking at having to find a place for them to live.
Potentially 3.
Okay, potentially 3. So this project, we showed you a schematic, and that is a concept that we have. We have not done the design work for it. We have come up with a basic cost for it, but as your facilities director, I'm going to say, the longer we delay on this, with the supply chain issues and labor problems that people have, we won't really know what the price of it is until we actually get a bid back. And even then, there may be some trouble with people getting parts and materials. Andy and Tom have been on the committee for a while, and they know I've ordered stuff last August for commonly fixable things that we have, and we still haven't gotten it. So it's a hard environment for us right now to do things, but this project is really a necessary thing in order for us to prepare the county for whatever 980 inmates we have coming out. So what I'm asking for now is permission from this committee and ultimately from the county board to appropriate the funds and move forward with this project to build residences out there on county wide next to where we have the trailer.
And what is our penalty if we don't get these people into the facility by that time?
I will defer that to Mary Ann because I don't want to speak wrong, but it's significant.
It can be up to $1,100 per day per statute. That's what the penalty is. And basically looking at it, it could be over $400,000 per year. Now, I do not want to mislead you. I understand that. I know we have never had a fine, but clearly you don't know what the judiciary will do because they have every right based on statute to impose that. I will also tell you that we never know when people are basically coming out. We don't get much of a heads up. I was in court, sort of a blur now, maybe 3 weeks ago on another 980 matter. And when we were going into court, and I think the sheriff was with me at that time, the prosecutor said, "Oh, I just want to give you a heads up. We have one out and there's probably going to be another one coming out. And sorry, these things happen." So right now, we have to find housing for one of these quote, new 980s by the end of August 2022, because we've got 120 days, as Mike indicated. But yes, it's $1,100 a day.
If I can add there, I believe it was Racine County. In lieu of imposing a penalty on the county, the courts ordered the county to build a facility similar to what we have. So, I think the judiciary is working with counties when they know we're making an honest effort. I think they would reserve the penalties for when somebody just blatantly says, we're not going to do it. But, if we decide not to do this project, there is precedent that the judiciary would just say, build it. And then we would have to go and do it anyhow.
And if I can add, and you also may know, we had basically this plan that we kicked around because we knew we were facing this potential problem. And we had reached out to the state to see if we could get its blessing in writing. And bottom line is the state would not say, "Oh yeah, we'll tell you that this is perfect housing in the future." But unlike the past, as Mike indicated, these are individual units. Essentially, they're like studios. So they have their own roof line. Is that right?
Right.
But they share a wall. But there's no roommates in this setting. But the bottom line is the state is not going to give us anything in writing. And I know the sheriff followed up on it. So I don't want to mislead you, but our hands are tied because there are sex offenders in Sandwich, who were Winnebago County residents at the time of their crime. And we are faced, when they are up for supervised release, with coming up with housing, we're all facing significant penalties.
One of the reasons we might not have got a fine last time too is because you were working on getting that trailer in. Because I remember
Right.
The judge was going ahead and saying, what are we gonna do? And you kept on telling him, so you were working on that, so she did not
Mhm.
give us the penalty, so that helped us out with it.
Right. And once we start the project, we've shown a sketch with like 3 units with communal walls. If there's a cheaper way of doing it, we would be looking at it. I've got to get the project approved and I have to get funding approved so that I can move forward. Or, we have to rob our operating budget to do a project that I don't know if the county board would approve. So, I don't want to waste good money if this doesn't get approved.
Can I use that as a lead in the question? Just,
Sure.
I wasn't sure that your analysis, your cost analysis here was for the 6-unit all-in-one or the
6-unit all in one.
inline units. Would it apply to either one?
Right now it's a swag because we haven't done any design.
Right, okay.
So, we're using this.
You're tying it to the 6 all-in-one, but it could be
Yeah.
for any kind of design that you decide on.
Right.
Okay. So when you did this cost analysis, did you get contractor estimates or did you use a?
Yes, they got contractor estimates.
Okay.
Both Context and Martin Riley worked on this project for us and they work with contractors and get estimates.
Okay, so it's not a cost.
No, they didn't use ours.
Yeah. Okay. And you think once you get this thing constructed that you're gonna have a bid process here, but this is an open meeting and they're gonna know what the budget is before they make the bid, right?
Mhm.
So do you think the actual construction cost of these units could come in less than what the budget is for?
It could.
Okay.
Just because we put a number out there, we've had discussions about this. People don't necessarily bid to the number because they're going to bid against other contractors.
Okay.
And if they bid to the number,
Right.
somebody else is going to come in and say, well, I just spent $50 off that budget, and they just snag the job from.
Right.
So the experience that we've had with the contractors is, yes, they know what the budget is, but they are going to give us a valid cost estimate on what it's going to take for them to do the job.
Okay.
The other part is, if we don't show a commitment for it, contractors don't. They're not going to waste their time on it. Everybody has labor issues, so that extends to their estimators, and they're not going to waste their time on bidding a job that doesn't look to be concrete.
So these costs, when you look at them, having some idea of what multifamily units cost to build, being an appraiser, it seems like this is really, at the top end of the range. Is there a quality or is there some features in here that are going to be more costly than?
Yes, there is. Right now, the sewer that we have to tie to is on Jackson Street.
Okay.
So we have to run about 1,000 feet of a lateral to get to the sewer.
But you had a separate estimate of the sewer though. So the building itself at 156 or 157 bucks a foot, is that what it was?
Mhm.
And then that's definitely at the high end of the range of multifamily costs.
But that's what we're getting for construction costs.
That's what they,
We've had
is that
the
because
cost of
materials costs are up so much?
Yep, and the cost of labor's up.
Yeah.
We've had doors that we used to get for what, Paul? $1,000 or $1,700 to $2,000 now.
Yeah.
Garage doors. You want a garage door? It's 14 to 20 weeks.
Okay.
Steel sided buildings, 32 weeks. You know, so it's,
Okay.
and price of copper wire, when we call, we call Viking for it, the estimate's only as good as long as we're on the phone.
Yeah, so we have some inflation issues.
Definitely, definitely. And that's what I'm saying. You know, we came up with talking with contractors for what they're estimating this cost to be. If this project goes forward, you know, it'll be probably 4 months before we can go out for bid.
Yeah.
And God only knows what the economy is going to be doing at that time.
Now, you said you have an immediate need for one. So if you went with the inline style and say you just built one unit at a time, you could even build them detached in a row.
Right, that's an option that we've looked at.
Okay. And then I was just wondering with the multifamily units, whether there'd be any concern about the common walls of the units.
You mean,
About,
Is there a special material used to divide the units?
well, because they be common units, I believe they would be considered a fire barrier. You have to have a fire barrier when you have a townhouse or a condominium.
What would that be?
It would probably be, I don't know if we'd have cinder block
Just
walls.
black? Okay,
Yeah.
because, and that would keep somebody from punching a hole through the wall potentially. Okay.
Generally, though, if I understand correctly, these offenders aren't really attracted to their other offenders.
Okay.
They're usually juveniles or, you know, somebody that is not necessarily
Yeah.
their type of person.
But if you had the cinder block walls, that would definitely
But
solve it.
there's also drywall that we've got, I forget what we call it, for where we have second chance. It's like a cement wall.
Yeah.
And the kids at second chance have not gotten to the drywall that we've got there.
Okay. And then if you have the 6 all-in-one, could you need to expand the units as rapidly? Now, the sheriff said that maybe you're not gonna need more than 6. That's gonna cover you for quite a while, but you know, if you need to expand, would the inline allow for expansion more readily than the 6-unit option?
What our constraints are more are the distance from the other locations. When we laid out where we put the trailer, we can't go much further east because we're too close to the apartments across Jackson Street.
Yeah.
We can't go too far south because there is a daycare next to the jail. So the
1,500 feet. Is that
1,500 feet. And it's not just 1,500 feet, it's 1,500 feet in an adjacent parcel. We could be 40,000 feet from an adjacent parcel, but if it's an adjacent parcel, the law says we're too close.
Okay.
So we have to, part of this project, what we have to do is we have to, and why it works so well for us is because it's county property. We're going to subdivide the property within our big parcel because our parcel includes the jail, the transfer station, and the highway shop. If we subdivide it within it, the adjacent parcels all belong to us. So that will help us with if somebody takes some of the property south of the jail that's farmland right now and turns it into a subdivision. We are not adjacent to that farm property. We have our property as a buffer, and the potential for the county to vacate those properties is probably pretty slim. We've already worked with the city with this in that they were going to have a bike trail run down Highway Y. And we told them, you're running right by where we're planning to put 980 sex offenders, and they've rerouted their bike trail. So, you know, we do have buy-in from the city on this.
we are gonna have to go back.
Yeah, we do have to go back to the city for zoning and everything like that. And the reason why we aren't doing more trailers is because the city said they do not want a trailer park up there. So it's, you know, we kind of looked at it for expansion. You know, we've tried to get a read from the state. You know, I'm an engineer and it's kind of like, you know, what's in the pipeline that I have to plan for? And we have not been really getting clear indications on what's in the pipeline. So we can only kind of go with our best assumptions with the rate that people have been coming out and what we're seeing. And, you know, we're thinking that the 6 units plus putting 2 people in the trailer is 8 people. The population for Winnebago County is nowhere near what it is like in Milwaukee County or anything like that. So, I don't think we're looking at a population coming out that's going to really require us to go past the 8 beds that we have for them right now.
Okay. Okay, that's all I can think of.
I've got a question, and maybe I'm wrong, but I never thought that we went ahead and put an amount of money to go ahead and construct something until we seen a complete design on it.
We've done it both ways. This one, we're asking to go forward for the whole thing, but just because of expediency. If we come up with a specific design, it can add on another 2 to 3 months to go through the approval process to get the funding to actually build them. And then, the 2 to 3 months would make it almost a year before we could put people in them.
So is that design going to come back to this table before
or
is somebody else going to approve it? Because it should be coming back to this table.
We
You
will,
don't have to look at anything. This is where it
no,
should come
I'm
back
looking
to.
at Mary Ann, because we've got to go before Judiciary Committee too.
Right.
We will update you on what the design is.
We should be seeing what it is. We have to prove, we approved the airport, we approved everything. It all come through here before anything was done. And that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. This project is unique in the fact that we have to do it fast.
I agree. I'm very happy that we were lucky we were going to have one out in our area. And thanks to a lot of fighting to a lot of this staff and everything. He's not going to be there, don't sound like. Then I have a question of Mary Ann and the sheriff. Not to take away from this committee, but supposedly this person that was going to be out in Rushford, I thought the people had to stay in the county that they're from.
The county that they resided in at the time they committed the crime has the responsibility to find them a resident. Now, if this particular offender that was potentially going on to Rushford, if his needs and issues are so great, they could put him in a different facility in a different county, but we have the responsibility statutorily to find him a place to go. But if his needs are so great that we can't provide that, and that we can't meet his treatment plan, then I assume he's like the anomaly that we just can't.
I heard that he was going to some other county, so that's why I asked.
Yeah, maybe, but it wouldn't be a like Carnival River home, Rushford home, or trailer. We're probably talking about maybe a locked facility for someone with dementia or something like that is able to take a sex offender. That'd be my guess. I don't know that. That's the first time.
I have heard that this gentleman that was looking at for church they bought a different place in a different county. And so that's why I was just asking that, and I apologize.
Yeah, and I think that happened in El Dorado with offenders coming from Racine, Milwaukee, and they fought it. The county of Fond du Lac fought those offenders coming in. So if let's say he's going to Door County could say, we're not taking him, it's not our responsibility. I think they would win that court.
It wouldn't be uncommon for the investor to try to find as many properties for these as possible, because it might not be him that he's trying to pursue, it's somebody else at DHS. That's why this whole, the Act 184, there was 2 issues, and I didn't talk about the second issue the other day, but the other issue was there was a scandal of sorts. I don't know if anybody have heard about it, where there was only a few LLCs that popped up that seemingly was 4 or 5 of these LLCs were getting all these lease contracts. And so there was speculation that there was improper relationships with DHS, and there was constituents all over alleging kind of nefarious deals. So it wouldn't shock me that if an investor, Rushford didn't work out, that he's going to another county to buy a property for a different sex offender to try to get, because I mean, on a $70,000 house in the town of Wolf River, when you're making $2,000 or $3,000 a month, cap rate's pretty high. So that was one of the other issues of Act 104 that they were trying to solve.
Just a few comments, I guess. Mike, are we shooting high on this number? I mean, obviously so many projects, in the last 6 months. We're gonna come back, for more, more of a budget transfer. I guess, how did you figure those? I mean, they came from Martin Riley and,
Yeah.
And I guess if you ask them to say, anticipate, I guess, what was your
We're
process?
not trying to pad it. We're not trying to artificially inflate it because the market is in such a flux. And then to go back to the other question, if we put out there that we're willing to pay, let's say, $2 million, it might make people a little bit less sharp with their pencil.
Mhm.
So we try to give you what we think is the honest cost of what it's going to be. And then if it comes in higher, we will look at ways to minimize the cost and try to change what we're doing to bring the cost down. I don't like to come back to you saying the bids are whatever. A prime example of this is, the airport, when we built the airport building, Martin Riley came back with a price tag of $5 million and the bids came in at $3 million. And to this date, neither Martin Riley nor myself can understand where the contractors came in so low. And Martin Riley, I know Martin Riley uses contractors to help them with their estimates. We did that with the child care center. We did that with the airport. It's just, I work in private sector and it depends on what the economy is. Sometimes we bought jobs to keep our workforce busy. And sometimes, we wanted to stay on the bidders list and we took what our costs were and we doubled it. And then we were surprised when we got the job because our competitors tripled theirs. So it's hard for me to say right now in the business environment that we've got, that this is what the dollar amount's going to be and, live and die by it. I can't do it. But so to bring that back around, the best way that we can defend it is saying, this is what our best estimate is of what the project's going to cost. With the caveat that once it goes out to bid, then we're going to find out what everybody in the marketplace thinks the job's worth. And hopefully our honest work with the contractors and the experience from the architects that we've got, they are close. But I've been burned one way and I've been burned the other way. So I'll let you know what the bids come in.
Another question, the city of Oshkosh doesn't like or doesn't want a trailer park out there. Are they going to be, okay with the existing trailer? They're going to say now that, you guys are going with this design, we want that trailer out of there. What is the discussion been there?
We haven't had any kind of discussion about that. We've had no indications about that. But I do believe the city of Oshkosh is aware of what we have to do, and their thoughts are similar to ours, is that they would much rather have that sex offender up there than in West Haven or, in Neenah or someplace else where families are trying to raise families. And it affects a whole neighborhood. So I believe their opinion of the project is that, yeah, this is the best place for them to go. And I think they will work with us on the designs. Actually, when we put the trailer there, the county has a rule that we don't have holding tanks. The county was pretty strongly encouraging us not to have a holding tank, and finally the city just said no. We said put a holding tank there because it's way too expensive to run to the sewer line that we want you to go. So the city's on our side and they're working with us. I'm not so sure that they're gonna let us have a holding tank for six homes, little tiny homes. But, you know, if that's an option, then we will go with that option and eliminate the sewer issue. And that would bring the cost down. But until I can really tell the city that we have a project to go forward, you know, it's kind of like they tell me to come back to them when we have a real project and what you really want to do, and then we can work with you on what it takes to get it done.
And the same concerns I've been bringing up as far as, you know, what the legislature has done, they could undo again. You know, this design seems to me that, you know, yes, if the legislature in, you know, 10 years, they say, no, we're going to go do a different route here. Can this be dismantled and repurposed the way it's designed now? We had talked about, you know, tiny homes or something similar to that, I guess. Is that how the design, is that kept in mind?
We're keeping that in mind. You know, there's always going to be sex offenders, and whether they're 980s or not, if we don't have to put a 980 sex offender there anymore, we could probably find 6 regular sex offenders that are having a problem finding a place to live in the community, and they would most likely be willing to rent it from us. Or we could change it into whatever the current needs of the county are at the time. You know, 10 years from now, maybe there's going to be another need that we don't know about right now, but we're trying to make them as flexible as we can.
I'll give you an example. This winter, we had 6 homeless veterans who paid $60 a day to put in a hotel. So there's certainly need for housing. We have a family currently with a 2-year-old child living in a car because they can't find a place to rent. They've been homeless since September. And so the voucher program is over, the Oshkosh former shelter over. So there is certainly housing needs. I think that Human Services and others will do that.
I guess, Mary Ann, I mean, we can't just put somebody that's homeless or even another type of sex offender into that area, correct? Like with a 2-year-old or even.
My assumption was that what you made was that there's no need. If
nobody was out there in the facility at all.
But 980s, as you know, there are statutory prohibitions.
Correct.
And if the offender committed child abuse, there couldn't be any minors. If the offender committed adult abuse, that's why there's a piece that they can't be 1,500 feet within a nursing home. So it's a wide net in this case.
Obviously, you know, 71 other counties are dealing with this. I guess, Mary Ann, as far as WCA and some of the other colleagues in corporate counsel, you know, what are they saying? You know, and I bring up like Milwaukee and Dane County with the higher populations. Obviously, you would think that they would have more of these folks. And you know, the example of Milwaukee County having a hard time finding the area. What are these other counties doing with the higher population? More challenges. What?
They, quite frankly, they are up against a brick wall. They're having a lot of difficulty. We have an outside attorney who is assisting us with one of our current cases. And he is based in the Milwaukee area. And he says, Milwaukee, that's the other piece, is there are parks. If you cannot be within 1,500 feet of a park, and apparently Milwaukee has a boatload of parks. So that is another issue. So I don't know the answer to your question. I know that, and it was alluded to, I think, at the last county board meeting in Door County, to address it in mind, that's much more rural. They have put up housing, certainly similar to this property. But I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out.
From an association perspective, I think when they lobbied for a fix to 184 in 2019, I was a county lobbyist. The difficulty then was there was so few counties that had engaged. I mean, Sheriff, at that time when we did the 184 184 fixed, it was like 5 counties. And getting traction from an association level, even Badger Sheriff's was more difficult because everybody said, it's your fault, not ours. Now we're in the 15 county range, and Washington, Door, they're all looking at housing opportunities primarily because of costs to buy. Building is cheaper to buy. But we've spoken to Representative Shaw, and I've spoken to others who work on legislation. There is an appetite to try another fix. You know, I don't know that there's any appetite to try the 1,500 feet rule again, since 2 governors have vetoed that, but there is appetite to do legislation to guarantee that, you know, this will be a thing. And I've been working on housing legislation like this since 2016. DHS refuses to support it. It's just how it's been the last 6 years. So I think there's appetite to force DHS's hand and do some other things to make this more viable project.
It would be great in a perfect world if they could get that $1,100 in penalty.
Yeah, they did it in the fix because they wanted good faith language as opposed to fine. So.
And it's not our intention to, if Green Lake County did have a place for somebody to house them in Winnebago County, much like the sheriff said that, you know, Fond du Lac County challenged that, so it would be our intention to have other folks in, but that could be a possibility.
I wouldn't be in favor of it. I think once we open the door, it'd be pretty tough on the shut. How do we get their offender out when ours comes? We get another 980. I don't know. I think that would be concerning.
And the purpose of the legislation, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was to avoid having counties serve as dumping grounds for other counties' 980 offenders. I think Fond du Lac was the prime example. So that's why the statute talks about having to go back to the county residents at the time of the crime.
Is there income potential for that? Not to say that we would want that. Is this
$2,000
Is this there?
at least 2,000, right?
We'll let you speak, but typically it's all good. You know, typically that's, you know, committee members, but for additional, you know, input that, no, that's okay. So I'll ask the question then.
In the past, we have been, we've negotiated a fee of $2,000 a month. Now, I have never gone up to the Wolf River area. I know Sheriff Mons has been there, and it's apparently the place that the state chose to house these offenders in was a ramshackle, and maybe I'm being kind, structure, and yet they were paying $2,000 a month per offender. It's not, well, or at least $2,000 for one, maybe
2,800
for
was
one offender or both?
for the one offender that was there. I don't know what their increase was for the second offender. If I could, we did, I got some information from a gentleman out of Manitowoc. And this is, as Ethan had stated, it's big business. One particular vendor is making nearly $400,000 a year off of the state with sex offenders, 98 offenders. So it's big business, and we're not, I don't think our intent is to compete with anybody's business. It's about taking care of the offenders we have without upsetting rural Winnebago County, because absolutely, as I stated during the meeting, none of these offenders lived in any township when they committed the crime. 6 were the city of Oshkosh, 1 was Fox Crossings, and 1 was me. So it is absolutely unfair to take these offenders, place them into the town of Wolf River, town of Rushford. That's wrong.
And let me point out, when the offenders wound up going to Wolf River, that was based on the court deciding that offenders should go there because the court was concerned that the trailer was not going to be ready quick enough. So essentially, the court decided to put that offender up in Wolf River.
Mr. Chair, I think that when we consider the income, 2,000, whatever we make, and I think it's the association negotiates legislation. We'll keep that and outside offenders coming into open facilities in mind, and we find language. But the other thing you have to think about is what's the social capital cost of the potential of them going into town of Rushford or other places. How much money is the county willing to invest, you as a supervisor, to make sure that when we go to court, we have a place in a near the sheriff's office so that, you know, they don't go other places. That has to factor into is this viable or not decision.
Did you say 2,000 a month per unit the state pays once you get a bill?
In the past, that's what they pay, $2,000 per offender.
Well, that is the dollar amount we're getting for the trailer.
From a valuation standpoint, just off the top of my head, I mean, that sounds pretty good. That covers your cost.
And they're the perfect landlord. If there's any damage that's done to that trailer, it's covered by the state of Wisconsin. My understanding, I found this out from a gentleman in Manitowoc, we don't have to mow the lawn.
No,
State takes care of it.
we do the snow,
Yeah.
but they pay for the utilities. And once the resident has graduated to the point, they will actually have a parole officer or one of their counselors or whatever with them when they mow the lawn. But as they get towards the end of their release, they may be allowed to mow the lawn on their own. But, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I think we want to have it close to the sheriff's department, is because they're still on the bracelet and they're probably 30, 45 seconds away from responding if there's an issue. And then, you know, I know some of our employees don't like it, but there's an awful lot of activity in the area that, you know, there's an awful lot of eyes on that trailer. So, you know, it's not just a bracelet that's monitoring them. There's, you know, 40, 50 employees that are monitoring them. Or,
The other thing is that typically when an offender is released from Sandwich into supervised release, there are 72 to 75 standard rules, and obviously they look at each offender, but they are incredibly restrictive where, and I know the sheriff can talk about this, the person cannot go out onto the porch to, let's say, get a newspaper. There's a newspaper boy, even though they don't have it anymore, you know, puts a newspaper on the porch. They cannot have access to internet. It is incredibly restrictive. They only leave the property, again, with the probation officer, if they have to go to a doctor's appointment, if they have to do grocery shopping. They are under a very, very short leash, at least initially.
All right, any more?
Let's get this back to the $1 million question. The sewer hookup, 1,050 Jackson Street. Wouldn't the highway department be able to to the end of
that was not accepted as an alternative by the city. That's still something that we are going to fight, or I won't say fight, but we're still going to try and pursue that option a little bit more. But it's still, the sewer line for the highway shop runs out the back of the highway shop and back along the south lot line past the jail. So, you know, it's still, it might not be 1,000 foot, but it's still probably 750 feet.
just the real world. This term, the Chamberlain, the real world is to, if we approve this today, it goes to which committee next? Personnel and Government. Okay. And are they seeing it at the same time we are? Here to there. Okay, so realistically, we would not be seeing this at the board level until
It would be June.
Yeah, that's if we approve it today.
And I believe judiciary is meeting next week.
Yes, but this would probably be, since this is a committee of jurisdiction, and then you're gonna go to DNF and you could do judiciary after
Okay,
in June, and then have the meeting, in June. because it's-
With that, I'd like to make a motion to accept this.
All right.
So I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion?
I still think that it's come back here to look at the design of it. I'm all for it, believe me, I'm all for this. Just I'm afraid we're gonna have a problem if you start going ahead and eliminating that step, because they did for the airport, they have for every other place, it's been any amount of money. Now we're gonna eliminate that step. You guys can call a special meeting anytime you want. If you need a special meeting to get this approved. If they come up with a design or whatever, that's fine, but that's my only reason for stating that, is that if you eliminate it at this time, the next time you have a big project, just be ready, then they're gonna say, well, you didn't for this one, why do you have to, for our project?
So we will motion on the table, can you add an amendment?
I can, but, I'm just stating the reason why,
Mhm.
from my experience, that's the only reason. I would like to make a friendly amendment saying that it still has to come back here with design, for this committee to look at the design.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded on the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Now we have to go back to the main motion. Can I get a motion on the amended version?
So move.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Chairman, I just want you to understand, if you need to call a special meeting, if they have that, you can really do that. You've got, 3 members, a quorum, at least to go ahead and vote on anything, so, okay.
All right. Moving on. Agenda item number 5, discussion and approval of a capital project and budget transfer of $259,900 to design and remodel the USDA office suite per USDA requirements.
We have a suite that is rented by the USDA. And it has been the bane of my existence for the last year. Previous to this lease, they've just renewed them, and we've had a very good tenant landlord relationship. With this last lease, they came through with a whole slew of terms and conditions that they wanted us to go through. And I had gone through and figured out what I thought they wanted and gave them a price, and it was about $19,000 to do what I thought was the requirements of the lease. They came through and did a site inspection probably 2-3 months ago, and they came back with a revised drawing of what they want us to do, which is some significant changes. They wanted a computer server room built. Their servers are right now in a lockable cabinet. I thought that was suitable for them for the last 20 years, 23 years. But they want a server room built for it, so that's going to require us to change the lighting in the HVAC for that room, plus building the room. They want a conference room built, which will require us to remove some walls in order to build the new walls. They want to secure their perimeter of the buildings. I had Martin Riley come in and take a look at what their requirements were, and he has come back with an estimate of $259,000. And that includes what I would end up having to do for the design work, because now this is work that has to go before the city for approval of the modifications to the building. And as a result, now I have to hire the architect, I have to do bidding documents and all of that. So that's all lumped into the $259,000. And the USDA will not proceed with signing the lease until they see 3 bids. And so in order to do the 3 bids, I've got to basically have a capital project to go out to bid and get actual bid numbers from contractors to do this work. And that is what this capital project is for.
Will they reimburse us that?
Yes, that is in our, and that was built into our lease. And when they saw the price tag, they said, well, that's more than what we can just agree to. So they need to see I gave them a breakdown of all the costs. But they said, now we need to see the 3 bids before we can agree to this. And what could end up happening is if it's still outside their price range, they could let us know that they will not renew the lease and they will look for other space in the city or in the county. We have decided to pursue this because the Coughlin Center is built as a one-stop shop for the rural constituents of the county, having the USDA, Farm Services, Land and Water, the DNR out there, all in one place was considered a good thing for our constituents. So we would like to keep that going. But once again, I'm at the point now where I can't go forward until I have authorization for a project and funding to go forward with the design. And the sketch I've got there that's highlighted in the yellow is actually what the USDA wants done. But with re-subdividing that whole area, it was one big suite. Now I have to separate out lights, I have to separate out the ventilation, I have to put in additional outlets in the walls that they want. So it's not just a small little project like what I was trying to get them to agree to.
I was just curious, you think once you get the 3 bids that they will agree to amortize that over 3 years?
That's what I'm offering them as the lease.
Okay.
Um,
Since they won't commit to any more than 3, you're
That's-
gonna amortize
that's
over
right.
3.
Yep. Because, I don't think it's a good deal for the county for me to amortize over the 10 years of the potential lease and then have them come back at 3 years and say they want to change.
Why are they only committing to 3 years?
Because they have changed their occupancy over the 20 years. And in their business model, they only want to commit to 3 years. So, back in 1998, when they occupied, they committed to 10 years and there were no changes. In the early 2000s, like about 2010, all of a sudden they said, we can no longer afford this. They cut their staff in half. And, we basically had to put up a fake wall saying, well, you can't go back and use this area. And they paid for it. And now they're coming back and they want to take back that space. So it's like in my experience here, their usage of the space has gone up and down. And why they only want to commit to 3 years, I don't know. But from my experience, I don't want to commit the county to trying to recover those costs back in the years 4 through 10.
And then one more question, if I may, at the rental rate that they're at now, do you think that if they don't go beyond 3 years and the space vacates, becomes vacant, you'd be able to release it at the rate you get from them?
We would probably use it for county uses.
Oh, okay. You wouldn't put it on the market.
No, we wouldn't put it on the market. The county's had a policy that we do not compete with landlords unless it's for a governmental purpose. So we don't want to be a landlord and taking money away from somebody that has commercial space that some other commercial entity can use.
And you wouldn't even consider a governmental tenant to replace?
It would depend if it's compatible with what the county needs, and if at the end of 3 years, we would be looking at what our needs are.
Sounds like you could use it if you need,
Yeah,
if it came available.
yeah.
It's all, so this project, what it fall under what you were talking about earlier on this other, under the deal, like, then you'd have to come back to us and present these plans to us before.
Those are the plans.
Those are the plans.
Those are the plans.
We just need 3 bids.
Yep.
And how many bids do we have now?
We have none because I don't have a project.
Okay. So this is the project here.
Yep.
And
There would,
then what has to be done at this point? Just go.
I have to get an architect to do the design and do the bid documents. Then it has to, because we're affecting the egress and all of that with the city and changing walls, it has to go to the city for design review. And then we can go out for bid and get the 3 bids. We'll select the lowest responsible bidder and, say, this is the bid. Well, actually, we won't even go that far. I will give the USDA their 3 bids and say, do you want to pursue this? And it could come back low. And they may jump at the chance, or depending on the market, it may come back higher than what I've estimated. And, it's in their ballpark then, whether they want to go forward with it or not.
But if you pursue the 3 bids and they'll sign right away after you get the 3 bids. There's supposedly they'll sign.
I'm going to say if they agree with the prices.
Right.
I think they choked on the price that I gave them.
And they will do it before you have to do any.
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
most definitely. My plan is they sign the lease and then we do it because they're supposed to be paying us for these changes. I'm not going to go ahead and do the changes and then have them come back and say, well, no, we're not going to do it. Yeah, so they have to commit to the lease before we move forward with actually doing the work.
Mike, the 259, if it comes back at, let's say it comes back at 259, can that escalate because we're waiting for them to make a decision?
It could. Actually, if we get a
course with them.
if we get what we get, we go out and we get fixed price bids. So basically, we have them hold their prices for, is it 45 days? So basically, I have to sign a contract with the contractor in 45 days and they have to hold their prices. But as I've said earlier, the market is just like really crazy. If somebody comes back and tells them, well, hey, these doors, instead of being $1,700 are now $4,000, the contractor is going to come back and say, I can't eat that kind of cost. So, there may be something like that. I can't, my crystal ball is really foggy.
So does that fall back on you then, or?
No, that would fall back onto the USDA. I'd go back to them and say, hey, these, we would have to talk to them and see, what kind of contingencies there are. And the price that I gave them had built in a fairly significant contingency just because of that. So hopefully we wouldn't see cost increases like that we could accommodate that within our contingency. But if there was something that really would raise the cost to us, I've got to get that answered from them when I tell them what the bids are. And I'm thinking they may agree to it, they may not. And if they don't, then it comes down to the point where we're going to, I'll have to talk to county executive. We might just say, we're not going to eat that cost. It's not that important to us that you stay here. But, that's a topic of a discussion I'm going to have when it happens, if it happens. I mean, that's a pretty good number that I gave them. And the fact that they didn't just shut the door means that I think they might accept it.
So, their work atmosphere has probably changed since COVID. I would assume as far as physical people that they've had in the building and all, is this, kind of a change from COVID that they're seeing like, okay, we want a conference room to be able to Zoom people into a meeting here. Is any of this, affected?
Yeah, it is. And, and I had some discussions with the USDA because some of their cleaning requirements is over and above what we do for our buildings. And it's like, I can't do it with my own staff, and that's who's cleaning it right now. And we actually talked to some custodial contractors who gave me a price, but then said, if you come back to me, I probably won't even bid on this because I don't have the staff to clean the place. And I do know that you have to go through a relatively strict background check to work in the USDA buildings. Our staff here, just a side note, we do background checks before we hire employees. Because we work in the jail, we work in the courthouse and everything, our employees go through what's called a CJIS background check. When we go into the USDA buildings, we actually have to go back through a third federal background check for that. So, a lot of the contractors that we've had for custodial services in the past, I do not think that their employees would pass the background check because they didn't pass our background check. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I do know Outagamie County went through all of this, and they were using Jack's Maintenance to clean USDA, and Jack's Maintenance canceled their contract with them because they have no staff. So my counterpart up there is scrambling with how he's going to meet the requirements of the lease. And in my discussions with Washington was that if they don't hear complaints from the local people, they don't have a problem. So we've been keeping the local people happy. So I don't think we'll have a problem meeting their needs.
Mike, we're just supplying the physical infrastructure. We're not providing any furniture or anything like that.
No, they wanted us to put up a projection screen. But we've asked them if a TV would be an alternate like what we've got. And the local people were okay with that. Some of the representatives I've talked to are okay with that. I just have to confirm that when we move forward.
More discussion. Looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Maybe a second. Second. The motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Passed 5-0. Moving on to director report on department operations. Mike?
You've all got my project list. So, we've got a couple big projects going on. The big one that we're trying to work on is 980 project. We talked about that today. We are looking at, let's see. The other big project we've got going on is the courthouse tuck pointing job. That's probably about 40% complete. We're looking at being done with that towards the middle to end of summer. And then the exterior of the building will be all tightened up. Let's see. We talked about the USDA lease proposal. You guys saw a presentation last week about the highway shop. That's a project that Bob Damon and I are working on. Should the funding be approved to that, we'll be moving ahead with that project. We are slowly but surely working with the other departments. We're kind of worming our way into it. Since I've got a bunch of new members on the committee, everybody thinks as a facilities department, we take care of all of the facilities. There's like 143 buildings that the county has. Now, we don't take care of 143 buildings. We probably do about 20 or 25 of them. The other departments like parks, airport, solid waste, highways, we're all taking care of their own buildings. Over the last 20 years, we've kind of wormed our way into there because we have expertise that they don't have. And we're trying to teach them how you really do building maintenance. You know, like if you have a brick building and the mortar falls out, you really don't want to go in and just put caulk in there because that is not the way the building system was designed. It should be gone back into with a mortar because bricks are porous and mortar is porous. You put silicone caulk in there, it's not porous. So any water that infiltrates in can't go out the way it normally would. So then it comes inside the building. So we've slowly worked our way into it. We've started taking over the warning sirens. That was probably 10 years ago. American Siren used to do it. And we would have warning sirens that were out of operation for weeks up on end. And knock on wood, I think I can say our sirens are not out of service for more than just a couple days. So long story short, we're starting to worm our way in there. So you'll start seeing some projects where we're working with other county buildings, but we're not responsible in overall for all of the buildings. So, you know, Tom or Jim Shell came forward with you with like a project for hangars or things like that. We're trying to work with them on trying to get the bids and the drawings the way that we normally would do it. But that's not been something that's been widely practiced for as long as I've been here. It's you know, we're just slowly doing it. So if you have questions about other buildings, I'll be glad to answer them, but I may or may not be able to tell you without some research. So we're working with the highway shop. That was a problem with some air quality issues that was brought to us last fall. We're working with them on doing it. We actually did an assessment, and the building at the time was built the way Walmarts and everything were built. And if you see Walmarts, all the exterior brick on the Walmarts are painted because they leaked. And that's how the moisture got in. We didn't paint the exterior of the highway shop, so we had water infiltration into the building. So we're working on them with them to get that taken care of. We do have a sheriff's evidence garage that we are going to be bringing forward to you guys for an expansion of the project. We had it at the committee meeting last month and it was referred to judiciary. So that should be going before the judiciary committee this next week, I think, where we want to, the sheriff needs more long-term storage space for evidence. And the coroner needs space to store, I don't know how to put it nice. She needs a place to store bodies. Over the Thanksgiving Day period, they had a rash of overdoses that we had no place to store them. And we ended up having to borrow a morgue trailer from, was it Wood County? Mm-hmm. And park it outside the jail to hold 12 bodies. And we had our bodies in there and there was a massive traffic accident out to the west and they wanted the trailer back. And we had to scramble to try and find some place to put the 12 bodies. And with COVID and just the baby boomers dying faster now, the nursing homes where we normally had storage availability, they were full. So, you know, it's like, we were really scrambling to find a place for her to do it. And this would work well for the coroner. I know she was here last month, right?
Yes.
To talk to you, but unfortunately, Andy and Tom were here. But that will be going before, I believe, the judiciary this month. And then it'll be going before TNF to expand that capital project to include a morgue area and office space for the coroner out by the jail. We're working with the sheriff to change out some of our cells from having mesh fronts to them to having glass, or we're going to go with a high impact composite laminate glass, or plexiglass for lack of a better word. The state has been doing this in their areas, and we're using the same product that the state has, and the material has been ordered, and I believe we're looking at July is when they're going to actually be able to start getting the stuff done. What's kind of slowing us down there is not so much the plexiglass, but the availability of the steel. So that's going on. We did go out for a bid to clean up some of the open pods. I cannot remember what the bids came in at, but we're working at doing that. Let's see. Some of these other ones, you know, we just haven't even really been able to work on that. We do have an issue with the air conditioning up at our Need and Human Services building. We actually have two issues. One of them being it's an R22 system. So R22 has been taken out of production. So the only R22 refrigerant that exists is what exists right now. So if you need to recharge your refrigerant, it's becoming more expensive. So that air conditioning system is 20 plus years old. I think it's 25 years old. So it's coming to the end of its useful life. We've been keeping it running, but we've had a problem with one of the coils now in one of the air conditioning units. It's leaking in an area that we cannot access. So we are working on a project to replace the air conditioning at Need and Human Services. We've got a training facility going up out at Parkview. That is moving right along. They were going to pour concrete, weren't they? Yeah. So we've got the footings in, we got the concrete poured, and they should be able to start constructing the actual structure of the building. If you go out there by Parkview, you'll probably see it. It's right on the west side of Butler Avenue, right by Parkview. You know, a lot of these you'll see materials on order. You know, we're updating the building automation system for Parkview. This stuff's on order, and we're looking at weeks for it to come in. So it's a challenge for us to get stuff done. We have the boathouse. It's going to be before the county board for additional funding. Those bids came in high, and it's been a real process. We started the process, I think, a year ago, April. But in order to go through the regulatory permitting process, we finally got the DNR and Corps of Engineers permits in the middle of December. And once we got those, we went out for bid, and the bids came in higher than what we had for estimate. And that is going to be an additional, I think, $100 and some thousand. That's coming before the county board next week for approval. We've got the UW Fox Cities Child Care Edition that is going on. Working with the city of Menasha is, I think Menasha now has taken the place of Oshkosh. So that's moving along. There was, they approved the funding for the design work for the student center at UW Fox Cities. That was just approved last month, and it hasn't moved forward from that. And that's about all that we've got with the projects. Our budget is looking good so far. My shirt, but
real concerned about it, but, the King's building, the mother's room that one of our supervisors was real strong on, I see is on hold. So now that Mary Ann's moved out of there, are you going to do that there, or are
Yes.
you going to rip it apart?
No, we've got that planned. We've had some other projects that
I just.
we took it, but yeah, we've got it all planned out. I don't know. Do we have it scheduled, Paul?
No.
But we got to get Andy, our carpenter, freed up so that we can do the work.
I was just wondering, I didn't want to rip something all apart and then. rip-
Oh, no. It's all set. And I know with the Connect project, the program there, we've talked to, they had plans for the area that we were gonna put the mother's room. And I reminded them that the mother's room's there, and they said, oh yeah, we forgot about that. So, that should be going. I don't know if, you guys are new, when they passed the Affordable Care Act, way back, there is a requirement that employers have a mother's room for their mothers, so that they have a place to go and do what they have to do to continue the breastfeeding with their kids. Doesn't necessarily give them permission to bring kids in, but it's a place where they can go to pump and not be in a restroom. So we've been
Room closet.
or a broom closet, right? So we've created a nice one at the Otter Street building. We have two actually. One is for the public and one is more so for the employees. So we're trying to do this now with the Orange King building because we're having some changes there. This is nice because it backs up to a restroom area. So we'll be able to provide the mother with a sink that she can clean her equipment with. Part of the requirements is not that they have to have plumbing or anything, but I just figured as a parent, it'd be kind of nice to wash this stuff out and not have to wait until you get home with it or take it into a restroom to wash. So.
And if I can add to some of that, obviously we just had some changes at the Warren King building, people moving out of the Human Services building. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So how's that transition going, and how many more folks moved out of the Human Services and into Warren King, and then what are we going to be doing with those empty offices in Human Services, or are those already filled?
There's been a lot of moving of people around. Veteran Services went from the Otter Street building. It was a big daisy chain. We moved Veteran Services to Human Services on Washington Street. They took up space that Human Services had, so that got moved into space that they had in their building. And then Mary Ann went to where Veteran Services was in Otter Street. And then the people that were displaced, I think, from Human Services with this program, we are building offices for them on the first floor of the King building, and they'll be actually occupying with their program the basement stuff and the first floor. So it's one of the discussions I've had with the county executive has been, we need to take a look at our buildings and see where there is vacant space, where people are not operating as efficiently as they could, and then coming up with a plan for the county board and everybody to see long-term how we're going to address some of this. One of the things I've been fighting for, Paul has to close his ears. Next week is my 24th anniversary. So for the last 24 years, I've been fighting that we should be taking a snapshot of our buildings and seeing where they are, what the condition is, what kind of deferred maintenance we've had. And I've just not really had much support for spending that kind of money. The county executive right now is supportive of that. And I will be coming forward with you guys with a project to do that after we've done a little bit more legwork and everything, to take a snapshot of, and that's where I'm saying, I can tell you where the buildings that I take care of are, but that's 100 buildings that I don't know about, and that we've never really set foot in, but we want to take a look at all of them and say, this is the snapshot. This is what we're seeing as deferred maintenance. This is what the price tag is for that. And then how are we going to get out of this hole? And, you know, part of that follow-on discussion will be is what is the county doing? How are we doing it? What is a better way of doing it? Where do we need to have these people? Because with COVID, a number of departments can work from home. And some of the departments, it did not affect their services to the constituents really at all. So that's going to be, that is a discussion that those departments are now having of how are we going to go forward with this to do it? And if some department now is 20% work from home, now I've got 20% of their department space empty. What are we going to do with it? So we've got a lot of big questions to ask, but the first thing that I told the county executive we need to do is take a look at what our infrastructure is and then lay it all out and say, this is what we got to do. And hopefully in my 24 years, I've started it and we've started laying it out, and priorities change, directions change. And I've got, you know, 2 or 3 studies on my shelf that we've never done. I've got, you know, a project that I've started that I didn't have staffing to finish up. But hopefully this snapshot will give us a good idea of what we got and then go from there. And
Where's your staffing now, being that you brought it up?
no change. No change. You know, we have, is it 2 maintenance facilities techs now? We have 2 facility tech positions open. We offered to one last week and he turned it down, and we don't know why he turned it down. He actually came highly recommended from one of our employees. And that employee talked up the job to him and came here, interviewed, and we made the job offer to him and he turned it down. We can't get seasonals to help us with the lawns. And we're still down 4 custodians, which aren't custodians anymore because we changed the job title to facilities assistants. So we've got that advertised as it is, but we're not getting any applications. So we're down a facility superintendent. I've asked HR to repost it, and we'll see what kind of activity we get on that. That's been open going on 2 years this June, and we've interviewed 4 times. Paul was one of our successful applicants. He was a maintenance supervisor. But I'm trying to look for succession planning because I'm not going to be here forever. Although there's some people here that want me to be here forever. But you know,
Yeah.
I'm going to be here for a while, but you know, it's closer for me leaving than it is for me coming, you know. So I got to get a strong management group here because I don't know how long we've had the facility director position open. Well, since January, and I do know that they've been beating the weeds to get applicants for that. I also know that there are other facility director positions open for counties in the state, and they're not having any luck filling them. So I'm not going to hold my breath that the county executive is going to be able to fill my position quickly when it comes time to fill it. So I got to make sure I have a strong management team here to carry on. And the applicants that we've had just haven't met that. And I don't want to put people into a position that aren't as qualified as I think they should be, but I may end up having to, and trying to teach them and get them the experience going forward, because I'm not having any luck getting people from outside that have the experience that I was looking for. So like I said, the maintenance techs, we've had, well, that's only been open a couple months or so. So, you know, we'll give it a little bit of time before I panic with that. But our custodians have been, we've had vacancies for the last 2 years, not necessarily all 4, but we've had vacancies, and I'm looking at least 2 retirements this summer. So that will mean I will have 6 vacancies out of 16 people. And one of the things I was kind of talking about at the town board, if you take a look at the number of square feet that our people are cleaning, it is just phenomenal that I haven't had a wholesale run on people just walking out the door. They're cleaning about 70,000 square feet per person per day. And, you know, the average is about 26 to 30,000 square feet in the private sector. You know, that's, I'm not saying everybody's doing that right now because nobody can hire people. But when you look at the scale of what is considered average for a custodian to clean per day, it's about 26 to 30,000 square feet. And with my 2 people retiring this summer, you know, we're going to be way up there. And I've still got 10 people I need to get off on vacation. People are still getting COVID. People still get sick. You know, there have been days when I was fully staffed and we were at 50% people here on the job from a vacancy, vacations, and illness, or, you know, somebody got hurt off the job or something. So it's going to be painful for us going forward. And like I said, our people, everybody in our department except Alyssa has gone through, well, no, you went through it because you were a custodian. So everybody in our department has gone through the CJIS training, our CJIS background check, and that is a pretty intensive background check. It is, a lot of people get weeded out by it. So it's not something that I can just go and hire custodians off the street to go and clean in the courthouse or in the jail or in information systems. It's going to be brutal for us. And I don't know that just raising wages, that's a quick fix, but that's going to be, you know, you got to start at the lowest and it's going to go all the way up to the top with wage compression. And you know, I'm just looking at statistics, and if you just look at the birth rate from when, well, I think we're all baby boomers here, except Andy. You know, the number of people that we have in our generation that are now retiring they haven't kept up with all the other generations behind us. So, you know, I had a discussion with the county executive, and he's read somewhere that they're looking at, like, it's going to be 18 years before they have the number of people in the workforce to replace the number of us baby boomers that are leaving. So this is a long-term problem that I don't know how society is going to address.
The good thing about that is that, you know, it took 10 people even 10 years ago. It's taken less people with technology and equipment now. That's the, you know, kind of one signature.
So that's where we are with our labor. We are doing, you know, you probably parked out front. We were the first department that put help wanted signs out in our yard. It's slowed down now, but we're averaging about 1 person a month coming in, and we give them applications and job descriptions for any job in the county. It's just, you know, here you go. We are out there looking for different ways that we can advertise and get our jobs out there in the public's view. It's weird. You know, I'm an old guy, and I remember when you used to have 5 or 6 people applying for a job anywhere, and now everybody's hurting. And it's not for want of money, because a lot of people are just boosting wages. I don't know, you know, it's beyond my understanding.
I'd just say one more thing, Mike, the courthouse fall protection, I think I brought that up maybe
Yeah,
last month or the month before. Have you looked at
I looked at
other
one,
options?
I looked at another option,
Okay.
and one of the problems is some of the areas that we have to access, that thing is too wide for it to fit. So, and we would need probably 3 of them for the courthouse. Because we can't move them from one level to the next without a crane. So, but I'll
Thank you
keep
for
looking.
In,
Yeah.
into that.
If you've got some other ideas, this one was a cart where actually when you fall, it takes an anchor and drives it into the roof.
Yep, that's what I said.
But it's like about 30 inches wide. And some of the areas that we got to walk on the roof of the courthouse are about 30 inches. And we'd end up having to put a crane up there to put it up there. But yeah, I'm gonna keep looking.
Yeah, it's like a little wagon.
Yeah, it's a little
essentially,
wagon.
with weights on it.
Yep,
You know.
yep.
And, just to give you guys some context that our folks go up on the roof and they have to be tied off, and so we, you know, trying to look at other options,
Mhm.
railings and whatnot, but that, you know, that little cart's got a tie off point, so you wear a harness.
Right.
Well, thank you for looking into that, Mike. Appreciate that.
I'm not saying we're not gonna do it, but,
It might be supplemental and maybe 1 or 2 spots
Yeah.
where you don't have to put up a rail. I just found that number to be quite alarming.
well, it's like, I've been up there and it's like, it is a little scary on some of these areas, because you are walking on, you know, the edge of the roof is about 3 inches, and you're up 5 stories, and the walkway is about that wide. And so, you know, you got a wall here and you're looking down at the parking lot. So, and that, we need to get out to those areas to look at the mortar and stuff on the buildings. There's roof drains out there that we gotta clean, you know, so it's, I don't like heights. And, it's scary up there. So we're gonna keep looking at it. Yep, the budget, you know, we're looking, you know, we're coming up on about half of the year. You know, June 15th is half the year, so we should have about 50% of our budget spent. And we're at about 50%. There's a few projects I had put in the budget that I won't be able to accommodate because our cost estimates came in way higher than what we had gotten some estimates for. One of them being Branch 5 wants to get the wood in their courtroom refinished. And we had a person who specializes in that, gave us a price for it, and put it in the budget, and we went out for bid. I think, did we go out for bid? No. Or we got revised estimates from that contractor again, and it like double, which put us, I think, $115,000. So it's like, we're not gonna do that. So, you know, there's some dollar amounts there that, you know, we aren't gonna touch this year.
Mike? Suggestions or items for the next meeting agenda? Do you have anything?
The snapshot of all the buildings, that one, that's gonna be coming forward as a project to be funded either through the ARPA funding or through some other funding with the county. So I'm not really ready to bring that forward yet.
I guess we should probably have an update on the 980 if there's any more information on that.
Update on that rock up there.
Oh,
The one that you're gonna put in place for them and then they're gonna.
No, I'll have an update for you. That's been like way low on my priority.
Well, I'm sure. I didn't know if they even got it to you yet.
No, the latest turn is, well, can you contract with them and we'll just pay you for it? And it's like,
Is the rock the sign?
yeah,
Okay. Where the sign we've been talking about since 2018 out at for the poorhouse farm.
Oh, sure, yeah, okay.
All right, so that was on our agenda for I think 2 years.
You haven't sold that yet?
we've got the pedestals for it, right? No?
No, they're still in order.
Oh,
Oh,
well, we ordered them, supply chain issues. So, you know, we'd be ready whenever we get the thing, so. We gotta get it done. They do have 2 light fixtures that they want to give the county that came from the original courthouse. We have to meet with the county executive on it, because it's like, I have no place for them. And, you know, originally they wanted to give us to them in pieces and unfinished. And I just told them, I'm not going to just take parts from you and have them sit on a shelf. So we have, you know, what do you want us to do with it? You know, we have no place to put the light fixtures, and if it's gonna cost me $10,000 to put up 2 old light fixtures, is that really a good way of spending county dollars? So.
I guess we didn't discuss that about the time of the meeting. We can decide whether that works for everybody, right? Anybody have any,
We kind of discussed it in that meeting that
Okay.
we had, but.
that works for everybody?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, so our next meeting would be June 8th at 9 a.m. And I will be looking for a motion to adjourn.
There was somebody up on the board.
June 8th at 9 a.m.
Kobe, I think, was up there before.
There was somebody.
Did they have their hand raised?
They were waiting.
A motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was Kobe there before. Kobe Challenger.
Somebody else.
We'll get the chance on the county board tour next